with that? I'm so glad. Okay, is that working? Okay. Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Marian Vendatuli. I'm the managing editor of the PRT, which is the non-profit, non-partisan news organization serving eastern Santa Cruz County. I'm going to start with just a few notes. Everyone should know that the restroom is outside the blue door, most importantly. Please help yourself to water and lemonade on our refreshment table out there. Feel free to leave a much appreciated donation in our tip jar out there to help us defray the expenses of this event. Turn off your cell phones, turn off your beeping watches, and most importantly, please treat all our candidates fairly. We're going to ask you to remain quiet during the forum. No clapping, no cheering, no catcalling. We're going to keep this as civil as we can. The question and answer portion of the forum will end promptly at 3:55. After that, the candidates will be making closing statements. And from 4 to 4:30, we're going to give each candidate a table where they can put out some of their literature, and they would love to have you come speak to them. This forum is being shared on our Facebook page, and it's going to be available on the PRT YouTube channel. It's part of the PRT's ongoing voter education effort. We want our voters to make informed decisions. And we believe that it's a mandate of local news to take an active role in this process. So here we are. We hope that through this program you'll learn more about our candidates and their vision for our county. I would just like to say on behalf of the PRT, on our board of directors, we have, you can raise your hand if you're on the board of directors. Our citizen journalists, our 22 citizen journalists. Some here. All volunteers. And our staff. I would like to welcome these 6 candidates running for Santa Cruz County Sheriff who have graciously consented to be here. We have with us, oh gosh, I'm not going to be doing them in table order because I've mixed them up. We have with us Joe Agostini, a Democrat, Travis Arnold, running as an independent, Rafael Corrales, running as a Democrat, the incumbent, David Hathaway, running as a Democrat, Andrew Ibarra, running as a Democrat, and Mario Morales, running as a Democrat. These 5 Democratic contenders will be facing off in the July 30th primary. Travis will be facing the winner of that in the November general election. We are really excited to have We Love Nogales here with us. That's worth applause. We hope this is the beginning of a wonderful relationship with them. We Love Nogales is collaborating with the PRT to broadcast this event on their channels to help reach an even wider audience. They have 11,000 Facebook followers, I'm told. Finally, I'd like to thank Casina Farley, wherever she went, over there, and the Patagonia Creative Arts Association for allowing us to use this great space. And of course, we want to thank Santa Cruz County Superior Court Judge Tom Fink for agreeing to moderate today's discussion. And he's not to put him in a spot, but he wrote all the questions. Okay. I'm just going to explain it briefly how this works. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to do an opening statement. Then Judge Fink will he'll start with Mr. Morales, ask him a question. Mr. Morales will have 2 minutes to answer. The other 5 candidates will then each get a minute to respond as well. The second question will go to Mr. Arnold, etc. down the line. Okay? At the conclusion of this forum, after they do a closing statement, we will be setting up tables for them all to put out their tchotchkes and their bumper stickers, and it will give everyone an opportunity to have some one-on-one time talking to the candidates. So now I'm going to turn this over to Tom. Thank you.
say this in court, but you may be seated. All right, well, Marion, I think the first thing is each of the candidates makes their opening statement.
Yes.
So, Mr. Morales, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the town of Patagonia during this lovely monsoon afternoon. My name is Mario Morales. For those who don't know me, they call me Toro. I'm a retired police officer / deputy sheriff here in Santa Cruz County. I'm currently running for the office of sheriff, and did 35 years of an extensive law enforcement career. During that time, I took some time off and I went into the produce business and set up my own business here locally. I was born here, I was educated here, I was raised here. I committed myself to the community, and my commitment is to the community. And I stayed here. I didn't go anywhere, and I love my community. I worked out in the county, in your area. I worked with the city of Nogales, and without your help, I can't get there. I'm looking for your help to get there, to take the sheriff's office to the next level. And with that said, you will not be disappointed. My extensive law enforcement career is paramount, and like I said, I dedicated myself to this area here, to the community, to Santa Cruz County, and I'm about you, and you are about me. I will represent you as best I can. I will have an open door policy. If I make it to office, you don't need an appointment. If you can't make it to my office, you leave me a message. I will make it to your house. I will go to your house personally. I will promise it. I will get it done. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Travis Arnold. I'm running for Santa Cruz County Sheriff. I bring over 10 years of experience with the Sheriff's Office as a patrol sergeant and 12 years of experience serving in the United States Army. My military background has equipped me with leadership skills, a strong sense of duty, and commitment to integrity and discipline. These values have been integral to my success in both the military and law enforcement. In addition to my public service, I have 6 years of experience within the defense industry, and in 2020, I had founded my own company as an entrepreneur. This company has rapidly expanded to serve over 76 military bases around the world, and this experience has provided me with valuable insight into effective business operations, employee management, and the importance of fostering a positive work environment. I'm running as an independent candidate because I believe that the role of sheriff should be nonpartisan. Our focus should be on public safety, justice, and serving the community without any sort of political bias. I am committed to creating a department that operates with transparency, accountability, and integrity. As a part of many of my plans and goals is we're going to be talking about funding these initiatives. I'm going to focus heavily a lot on talking about grant writing and securing external funding. This approach is going to ensure that we do not place an undue burden on the county and the local taxpayers, but instead take advantage of the numerous federal, state, and private grants that are available for law enforcement. My experience in the private sector has equipped me with the skills and able to identify, apply for, and secure these funds. In conclusion, my commitment to transparency, accountability, and community-focused leadership is unwavering. With your support, we can build a stronger, safer, and a more effective sheriff's office that serves the needs of all the residents of Santa Cruz County. Thank you, and I look forward to working together to achieve these important goals.
I want to say thank you to everybody for coming and for everybody on YouTube that's watching. My name is Andrew Ibarra. I'm a United States Army veteran. I completed both basic and advanced combat training out of Fort Dix in New Jersey. I am highly experienced and highly trained in emergency management. Highly trained in NBC, that's nuclear, biological, and chemical. If there's anytime there's a nuclear attack or an EMP attack, I will help you survive under those conditions. I graduated #1 in that class. I have 25 plus years as an administrator. I am a master when it comes to budgets. I can look back, look to the present and the future, and utilize those numbers to help develop and train the team. I hold a bachelor degree in business. I'm a second-year graduate student in pursuing a master's degree in business. I have 2 years of law, so I know the law at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. I think that's about all I want to portray it to you.
Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Rafael Corrales. I was with the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's for 24 years. Out of those 24 years, my experience starts as a detention officer, a deputy, to a supervisor. I plan on bringing all that training and experience to serve our community and to keep it safe. I was born and raised in Nogales. I left for college and I returned. I was hired by Mr. Tony Estrada and finished my career there with him. With the agency, I got to work together with different agencies that is very important in our community. You have to work alongside. Sorry about that. You have to work alongside with other agencies to better our community and our department. My training starts from or ends as a supervisor, and I'm looking forward to serving you guys. I'm not here looking for a title. I'm actually here applying for a job. I want to be your sheriff. I know what is needed. I patrolled all these areas, starting with San Rafael, Valle, Patagonia, Sonora, Patagonia, Rio Rico, Tubac. I know what is needed, and I know what we need to be safe. I know that we need a better relationship with our community. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank all my fellow candidates for participating in this political process. We have a participatory government in this country, and I've had the good fortune to have had friendly relationships with all the candidates here, either at a professional level or a personal social level. And countywide, I'm very thankful that there are so many candidates this year. I don't think there's been a time in my life where there's been this many candidates. It could be for county supervisor or for sheriff or some of the other positions, but it's a good indication of an interest in the political process. I'd like to just start out, I know I only have 2 minutes here, talk about some of the things that we think are going well, and there's always room for improvement. One of the things we're proudest of, and this isn't my accomplishment, it's my staff, it's the team, is the Substance Abuse Coalition in the county. This is 12 different organizations that work cooperatively. The courts in the county, Mariposa Community Health Center, City of Nogales, George Silva's office, the county attorney, Circles of Peace, the Hope Incorporated, and this is an effort to keep substance abuse from ever becoming an issue in the county. It includes programs like the Red Ribbon Week, the DARE program, and what we work on, for example, through the courts is what we call restorative justice, or it's also known as a diversion program. So we had a former judge, Emilio Velasquez, that pioneered a drug court and a mental health court. And the intent is to keep people out of incarceration, to keep people with their families, with their jobs, and in the community. I see my time's running out, so I'm going to wrap up and hit on some of these things later. Also, we expanded the volunteer program, Search and Rescue, our volunteer deputy sheriff's program, which is one of my issues from the past. We're the smallest county in Arizona. We have small budgets, so we do as much as we can with volunteers in order to be more effective with our budget. And I see my time's up. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Agostini. I'm a graduate of the Nogales High School, and immediately upon graduating, I joined the United States Navy. I was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, I was assigned to a submarine rescue ship, assigned to the North Atlantic Fleet. And later on, I was assigned to the police security of Charleston Naval Base. Right after my enlistment, I came back to Nogales, and I was a detention officer for the juvenile section of the Santa Cruz County. Immediately after that, I joined the Nogales Police Department. I attended the Arizona Law Enforcement Training Academy, and I spent 4 years as a police officer. Later on, I joined the federal government as a federal officer. I completed 36 years of federal service with what was then the United States Customs Service. And right after 9/11, we merged into what is now CBP under the Department of Homeland Security. And then, of course, after that, I had many assignments throughout headquarters. I was assigned to train Africa, Customs Services, and then came back to Nogales, and I became the second in command for the Port of Entry in Nogales, Deputy Port Director. At times, I acted as the Port Director for Nogales, supervising over 500 armed officers in a tremendous budget, about 100 employees in the administrative position. I retired from CBP as a Deputy Port Director, and I was able to manage personnel, the process over those 500 officers, administrative personnel, and we were very successful. I was assigned to headquarters to oversee a national program, and then I retired in 2017. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here.
All right, Mr. Agostini, could you, I think the first question goes to Mr. Morales, so we could pass that microphone. Good afternoon. So immigration is obviously a political issue front and center in this election. We're here on the border. Other states, such as Texas and counties, including counties in Arizona, are using newly passed state laws to enforce immigration by interdicting, arresting, and prosecuting persons who are transporting persons here who are here illegally. Cochise County, our neighbor, does a lot of this. The Sheriff's Department arrests, interdicts, and assists in prosecution of these people. And they're dedicating a lot of resources to it. We don't do that here. The argument in favor of it is, the federal government is not doing its share in interdicting and enforcing the immigration laws. That's a very basic summary. And then there's people on the other side who believe that's the exclusive province of the federal jurisdiction, federal law enforcement. And counties and states should not be involved in enforcing immigration laws. So my question is, if you were elected, would you follow the model that Cochise County has and use the Sheriff's Department to interdict and assist in prosecution of persons who are transporting persons here illegally, or do you believe that's a bad idea? Whatever your position is, why do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea?
Very good question, Your Honor. In fact, I was with Sheriff Daniels on Thursday, and we discussed exactly that topic. And like we said, we cannot do it by ourselves, and the federal government can't do it by themselves. What we need to do right now is get that partnership going with the federal government, with the state, and with other agencies around the area. As we speak, there is no partnership right now, and if I am elected, I intend to amend that partnership back up again. As far as enforcing the law, I wouldn't be the lawmaker, I would be the law enforcer. It would not be one of my priorities because we do have violent crimes occurring. If we would run into a situation where somebody would be caught smuggling, we would treat it as something that we would address it right there. We would not have a ship like going out and looking nothing but for immigration or illegal immigrants. We would, what I would try to do is get a task force going, maybe assign a deputy or two with the federal government, with the state, and like they do in Tucson, they have the immigration or illegal alien task force, and take it from there. But definitely we need to address that issue and bring it back as a priority. Thank you.
So as an independent candidate, I'm going to stick to my very apolitical belief on this one. First off, this bill that's being passed up is going to be a bill that would be ratified by the voters. This is something that will appear on the ballot, and the voters will ultimately decide whether or not they want this to be a law in Arizona. I'm not going to comment on my personal beliefs on this. What I'm going to say is, in my professional opinion, if a law is passed, the sheriff's office will have a responsibility to enforce those laws when they encounter them. But with that being said, currently the sheriff's office has at most 2 to 3 deputies working at it at a given time. So to say that the sheriff's office has the capabilities to effectively enforce these laws is, quite honestly, ridiculous. Instead, we need to be a force multiplier to the law enforcement community that we have here in Santa Cruz County. Being able to work with our federal partners and be a force multiplier to help them enforce the laws. Now we would just have a state law to assist us in backing that. Thanks.
A good question, John. If elected, I'm going to do everything in my power to stop illegals from entering the United States. The politicians tend to call them migrants. They're not migrants. Well, some of them might be migrants, but the majority are illegals. We have 2 problems in Santa Cruz County. One is the cartels. They bring in teams they're carrying backpacks, AK-47s, they're bringing fentanyl, cocaine. They come in, somebody's waiting, and they're making a big business out of the trafficking drugs. I will do everything in my power to try to stop the cartels in the way they are operating.
I'm sorry. Time is up. Thanks.
Time's up. That was a longer answer.
As sheriff, it will be my job to enforce what needs to be enforced. Just because they're being smuggled into the United States doesn't mean there's other crimes not being committed alongside. Based on my experience, that's how they also bring drugs. That's how they do other crimes. They need to be enforced. Now the locals, including the sheriff's office and the Nogales Police Department, have what they refer to as Stone Garden. And Stone Garden is a grant that's being funded by the federal government, mostly Border Patrol, and that's their job that they're supposed to enforce. So I don't understand how the sheriff's office is not doing that.
Yeah, that's a very good question. That bill that's going to be on the November ballot, HCR 2060, is very problematic. It basically turns local officers into Border Patrol agents. We had a similar bill several years ago, Senate Bill 2070, that was ruled mostly unconstitutional by the courts. Here's why it's problematic. 95% of the population in Nogales is Hispanic. Hispanic last names, Martinez, Rodriguez, Hernandez. They speak Spanish. They have Hispanic characteristics. Why in the world would I go have my deputies check documents for everybody? 95% of the people in Nogales, Arizona, and if you look countywide, 80% of the population of Santa Cruz County is Hispanic. So that would be a disaster, just like Senate Bill 2070 was a disaster.
Immigration and customs is dear and near to me because I spent 36 years enforcing those laws. The priority of the sheriff's office is you, all of you, to make sure we provide safety for the citizens of this county. Now, enforcing immigration to an extent, like Ms. Corrales mentioned, there is a system in place by the federal government, which is Stone Garden, which used to be the forfeiture fund, which is a previous program that local law enforcement agencies used to take advantage of. I managed that program during those periods. But the fact that there's a law that was passed by the legislation does not mean that the sheriff is going to put priority on that. Priority is the safety of the citizens of this county. Now, there's a time when you have to stop a person that you suspect of being illegal. That's why you have Border Patrol agents. Thank you, my time's up.
Sorry about that. Thank you. If you pass the microphone back. If we go to Mr. Arnold. So, I've been here 20 years, and I've been in the court system for 20 years. And over the last 20 years, we have seen...
Judge, were we supposed to get 1 minute each?
You did get 1 minute.
No, I mean, is it rebuttal, no?
That was it.
That was
You
it.
had your rebuttal.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Yeah, it's just a 1 minute answer.
Thank you.
Right, that's no problem. We've seen a tremendous increase in violent crime. I mean, the county used to go years before we had a homicide. And lately, over the last several years, I can tell you, the amount of violent crime, serious violent crime, has increased significantly. To what do you attribute that? And if you were elected, how would you work to address it?
So the uptick in violent crime can also be directly correlated to the staffing that we have at the Sheriff's Office. When I started at the Sheriff's Office in 2007, it was normal to have 6, upwards of 8 deputies working. Right now, having 2 or 3 deputies means that we're grossly understaffed. And this can be a trickle-down effect with it. In criminal justice and law enforcement theory, it's called a broken windows theory. But as a neighbor's house has broken windows, and people start realizing that, you know what, the property value is decreasing, they stop taking a lot of pride and care into their community with it, these effects carry on with it. And so I look at staffing as being one of the issues, but also the relationship with the community and ensuring that we've got that the direct line of communications with the community to be able to work together on these things. If there are problem areas, being comfortable that the neighbors know that they can come to the sheriff's office and we will be able to do something about it. Versus a situation where if you don't have that level of confidence, if you're not seeing the deputies out in your neighborhood, if you're constantly hearing about the shortcomings, you're not going to have that faith with your sheriff's office. So, to have the staffing as well as the relationship in the community will be the best way to address that issue.
Actually, I believe we're blessed in Santa Cruz County. If you look at other cities across the United States, we're blessed. Crime is very low compared to other major cities. I'd like to say one other thing on illegal crossings. That has to do with the current administration. They completely dropped the ball.
All right, we're off of that question. So, what about violent crime here in this state?
Okay. There I can promise the training, guidance to the deputies, maybe even increasing through a request to the supervisors to bring in more officers. That would be, I'm a problem solver, so that would be my solution to that. That's about it.
Violent crimes. I started in 1998 in patrol. We had 2 deputies at a time, at night or at day or in the evenings. Not much has changed since then. When I was on patrol and I was a supervisor, I used to tell my officers to have a relationship with the community, because without the community, we cannot solve our crimes. You need the community. You need to build a rapport. You need to have enough officers out there to be able to patrol these areas. I drive around our community and I hardly see any vehicles in our neighborhoods. You need those vehicles patrolling and keeping our community safe. That's the only way we can solve and prevent these violent crimes.
Yes, Your Honor. I mean, there has been an uptick. We had a period like of about 7 years with no homicides in the county. And I've looked at it, and I don't think there's a pattern. You know, it's not like gang violence come into the area. But unfortunately, we've had an increase of lethal interactions between law enforcement and violent offenders. So maybe we can't control the source, but we can train our officers in de-escalation. And this leads me into another thing that we're going to establish body cameras. We just need to do that, and we've put it in our budget for this year. And that way we don't have the he said, she said situation after a violent lethal encounter. We can actually review body cameras. On 2 of our incidents involving lethal encounters, the only insight we had from cameras was from outside agencies that happened to be on the scene helping in 2 of our interactions. So body cameras is the wave of the future. We have that in our budget. It at least controls our reaction to violent crime.
Violent crimes, even though this county is lucky to say that we don't have the level of violence that other cities and metropolitan areas have. However, the deputies and managers from that department should always be trained. Not only should you be trained, but you should always do tabletops. You should always practice. And you shouldn't just practice with the sheriff's department. You must involve the police department, the federal government, and state. Because the only way that you can attack this problem is by having a consolidated effort between all the agencies. Domestic violence is one of them, okay? That's something that we need to improve on. Education, train the officers, and do the tabletops like I mentioned. But education, training, practice, and then make sure that all the officers are given the right treatment. Give them some family time to make sure that when they come to work, they perform at their utmost. Stop.
I'm glad you asked that question, Your Honor. Soon after I took the oath of office or position of chief deputy, I immediately went to Tucson and did ride-alongs with the outreach program in Tucson, which was drug addiction and mental issue. I've worked on that rigorously here in town and doing ride-alongs in Tucson. And I brought down the program, I brought down training. We trained our deputies, we trained the Nogales Police Department officers, and when it was about ready to kick off, and I mentioned in case we had somebody that needed help on drug addiction or mental issue, that we would give them a ride to Tucson, to Kodak. It was grounded. I was told that it was liability, and I said, how can it be liability? We offer rights to people who are involved in domestic violence issues. So it was grounded. It stayed there. Upon going into office, I will get that back going again.
Next first question. So we're here in the Patagonia, in the eastern part of Santa Cruz County. Everyone's very well aware of the growing operations of South 32 in the mine, and it's going to get much more significant. Their operations are going to expand significantly. It's going to bring greater traffic to the area, more people are going to be living here and working here, and I'm sure they'll do their best, but with more people comes more crime. More traffic and more crime. If you were elected, address yourself to the people, in particular this part of the county, who are going to experience those growth in operations. What would you do about it to prepare for it and address it?
Thank you, Judge. I'd have to analyze the influx of people coming in to the area for the, what is it called, South 32. There is a budget within Santa Cruz County, so you'd have to approach the Board of Supervisors to obtain more funds. My answer is I'd have to analyze the situation. First, if that's the question before me, meet with the mines and see to what extent they're expanding. and then analyze all the road conditions in the area and see what we need to do to either through the county or the state or the federal level obtain funds to expand those roadways. That would be my response to you.
Your Honor, that's an interesting question. It's actually a question that we continue to ask throughout the years. Crime, traffic, especially in this area. I was with the Sheriff's Office for 24 years, and I never saw any of our deputies be trained to inspect trucks. I never saw that. We need to have deputies to work alongside with Department of Public Safety because there's going to be a lot of traffic. And with a lot of traffic comes a lot of violations. And it does not come down to punishment. It comes down to education. Education on how to drive, education on how to prevent crimes. So it all comes down to training. It's the same answers over and over, and it all comes down to retention and having enough officers happy in the department for them to stay here so that we can enforce traffic and criminal law.
As many in the community of Patagonia will know, we took over the law enforcement in the town of Patagonia about 1.5 years ago from the Patagonia Marshal's office. This had been part of what we call District 3, our patrol district, and so we wound up dedicating a certain number of deputies full-time here to Patagonia. Now, obviously, when population goes up, the requirement for coverage goes up. There's a Department of Justice formula that says they recommend 2.6 officers for a sheriff's office for every 1,000 population in a community. So we're behind that, but we're ahead of most agencies. We're at 2.0, like for example, Pima County Sheriff's Office is at 1.6. So we would need to request additional staffing from the board. There is room for that because we're under the Department of Justice formula, and increase our patrol function for Patagonia and also for our District 3, which controls the unincorporated areas around Patagonia.
As you know, it's extremely difficult to stop progress. But with progress, there's consequences. The consequences would be like most of you mentioned, traffic, crime, violations of different people living here. But there has to be a medium between the citizens and the company and of course the county government. And I believe some of those things are happening, meeting with you, the citizens, and you all have to come down to a happy medium, something that is not going to affect the environment, and if it is, it'll be at a minimum, something that is going to satisfy you as the citizens, that is going to satisfy the workers, the county, and the rest of you. The environmental impact is so important, especially for this town. We got people that really care for the community, for the roads, for the things that are happening. But development, it's very hard to stop. We just need to manage it properly.
Precisely just the other day, I was talking to a citizen in reference to that, and the biggest fear there is out there, a chemical spill. Chemical spill, those trucks will have to go through a county road, will have to go to a state route out to where they're going to their destination, and there again, get that partnership going again with the state, with the Department of Public Safety, with their hazmat team. We're going to need them. We need to be in touch. We need to train with them. We need to cross-train with them, and just like they said, train, train, train. And I mean, it's coming. I mean, there's no two ways about it, and we're going to have to make our county or the Sheriff's Department more appealing so we can have more candidates and have them stay here with us so we can retain them, and that it'll be just a combination of many things that we have to do. But that's one thing that I'm really fearing is that these trucks will be coming through here, county roads and state highways, and it's just a matter of time. There'll be chemical spill. That's a fact.
So to the answer to the question directly, staffing is going to be the answer for this. Cell 32 has already made over a $2 billion investment into the Hermosa project. Progress is coming, and we need to start preparing for this right now. Sheriff Hathaway mentioned the deal that the Sheriff's Office had to take over the Patagonia Marshal's Office. That's had some other effects that hasn't been so great. If you talk to anybody out in the Sonoyta and Elgin area, they're now saying, where are the deputies? Well, it's because somebody always has to be in Patagonia. And if we're not starting to make these preparations to hire the staff right now, we're not going to be prepared as South 32 is growing. One part of my campaign has been the introduction of the Boots to Badges program, where with my connections to the military, we're going to tap into a resource called the DoD Skill Bridge program. So as military service members are transitioning out of the service, they can come work an internship with the Sheriff's Office for 180 days that's continued to be paid by the Department of Defense. So we can start staffing the department now in preparation for that time.
Mr. Corrales, I think you're up first for the next question.
The next question, right?
It's Mr. Corrales. There we go. Okay. So the job of sheriff.
So it comes back to me again?
We got it right. The job of sheriff has changed a lot over the last 100 years. You know, it's no longer jump on your horse and put together the policy and round up the usual suspects. It's more of a, this is more of an administrative management and probably more of a desk job. So that being said, since it is more of an administrative job, what administrative and management experience would you bring to the table if you were elected?
If elected, that's a real good question. My job, if elected, is to go into the sheriff's office and conduct a survey and an investigation of the supervisors that are there, their training, my training. My job as the sheriff is not going to be out on the streets. I'll be out on the streets finding out what my community needs. But I will not be conducting investigations. My job as the sheriff will be to solve the problems of our community, of the sheriff's department and our staff. My job is to have a good relationship with other agencies that is not there at this time. You need that to make that sheriff's office successful, not only with other agencies, with our community, but with our board of supervisors. All these questions that we've been going through, all these questions lead back to having enough officers out there. Well, we need the help of our board members that are here for us to be able to hire this staff. And I need help to do good intel information to find out what I need to get my second in command, to be somebody that I can trust to also help me run my department.
So the question was directed towards you telling the voters what your management and administrative experience is that you would bring to the job.
Sorry about that. My training and experience, when I was at the sheriff's office, I got promoted to sergeant. I took a lot of trainings, and I was the administrative sergeant for quite a while. So not only have I been, after I retired, I got hired at the Rio Rico High School, and I've been working at the high school as a security guard with policies, and I have a lot of experience regarding, when I was at the sheriff's office, I helped write some policies also, and it comes down to who I'm going to surround myself with too.
Yes, as far as my management experience, I didn't get into this in my introduction, but before being sheriff, I was the head of a federal agency, and my last 5 assignments with that federal agency were all as the office head, as the agent in charge, managing personnel, budgets, a fleet of vehicles, managing the investigations, grants, creating multi-agency task forces in the last 3 offices that I supervised. And then, of course, I've had 3.5 years in a management position with the sheriff's office here, running budgets and obtaining grant money. Over 35% of our budget is grant funded, so we make every effort to get grant money rather than tasking the taxpayers of the county to pay for things. So once again, I'm responsible for fleet management, facilities maintenance, personnel issues, and coordinating with other agencies.
As I mentioned before, now I can go into detail. I was the Deputy Port Director for the Nogales Port of Entry. I managed over 500 armed officers, over 56 K-9 armed officers, about 100 administrative personnel, and other positions within CBP. My experience was not just the actual execution of my training. I was trained by the Department of Homeland Security in different courses. One of those courses, not graduating from Harvard, but it was a 4-month course on how to manage people, how to manage a process, how to deal with the unions, how to deal with the monies, balance the money versus the volume of work that you have. So you need to have techniques, you need to have skills in dealing with that. I have 36 years of doing that, managing the process, managing people, managing a budget that went over $40 million. Thank you.
As I said in my introduction, I did produce. I opened up a company one day that I happened to take a lead from law enforcement. I deposited $50 in the bank. I had 2 phones at my house. From there, I was able to build it up to a business where I was shipping produce from Mexico, unloading it in Nogales, loading it back up on a truck, destination Seattle, on a port container to Russia. Talking about trying to make 2 countries, agree on price, commodity, get your money. That was number 1, to get our money from the foreign country. And I was able to build that company, Mario's Produce, into a very successful company. So I bring that to the table as far as my management skills. I budgeted a lot of money, and I supervised a lot of people, warehouses, trucks, people at the other end, at the point of destination, and that's what I bring to the table. Thank you.
So aside from my experience within the Sheriff's Office as a patrol sergeant, my military leadership experience is one critical aspect of it. Leadership, for me, is very important that leader eats last. Being able to take care of your troops is the most important thing. But as I mentioned in my introduction, in 2020, I started my own business. COVID had just hit. I was working from home, and I came up with a crazy idea like this is the perfect time to start a business. And it's done remarkably well. As I mentioned, we serve 76 military bases around the world. I started a shaving company, and we now have our products throughout the world for our troops. So to be able to grow a business, to be able to manage the budget, I bootstrapped that business from my own savings, and we've grown it to where it is today. But most importantly, it's taking those lessons learned that I've had in the private sector, things like objectives and key results and key performance indicators, and being able to apply that to create some objective statistics that we can show how the Sheriff's Office is doing and what we need to do better.
My response to the question is twofold. In the military, I'm trained and experienced in making the impossible possible. They give you an impossible mission and you perform the mission. I served as an NCOIC, non-commissioned officer in command of NBC. When he was talking about chemicals, I'm an expert when it comes to chemical interactions. The second part would be, I have 25 plus years as an administrator, solving highly complex problems. Companies in the $100 million sales range. And lastly would be my education, a bachelor's degree and a second-year graduate student. That's my answer.
Sheriff, I guess you're up next. And body cameras, and I think you discussed this a little bit in one of your answers. Cochise County law enforcement sheriffs, they have body cameras. Pachuca City has them. I think the city of Sierra Vista has them. I know Pima County has them. And I know you're committed to that, but since you're first up, why don't we have them here in Santa Cruz County? And what can you do, as I know you support them, but what can you do to assure the voters that we're going to get them? Because as you mentioned, they are really the best evidence, objective evidence many times about what actually happened in an encounter with a law enforcement officer and a citizen. So to you, why don't we have them, and how are you going to commit to get them? And then for the others who are going to answer, you're welcome to answer why you think we do or don't have them. And again, what would you do, assuming you support them, to ensure that we have them in the future for sheriff's officers?
Yeah, we're the smallest county in Arizona. We have small budgets, but we're planning to do this mostly through grant funding. We've already requested a $600,000 grant to obtain the hardware. Another aspect is data storage, data preservation, and coming up with protocols. I have designated a body camera, a subject matter expert in my office, Commander Agui Huerta. He's the point of contact, the focal point for everything to do with the body camera project, for legal issues, data storage issues, policy as far as activation, and this will be in the jail as well. We're also going to have body cameras in the jail. Why we don't have it, Your Honor? It's just, I think it's mainly been a funding issue. There, in my first year, I requested it, and there was pushback from the county attorney's office that it would be hard to manage such a program, such a small office. The policy, the data preservation, but technology has gotten better. It's cheaper. You can have terabytes and terabytes of storage for a very affordable price nowadays, so it is not cost prohibitive. But it really became apparent to me, we had 2 incidents where lethal force was used by an officer. We didn't have body cameras. Nogales Police Department didn't have body cameras, but DPS had instituted a body camera policy, so their officers responded to those incidents, and the only body camera footage we have is from DPS, from the Highway Patrol, because they responded in one of the instances kind of in the middle, and the other one after the fact. But we got to see some of the realities on scene, and there's, like they say, a photograph is worth 1,000 words. And it also keeps the officers accountable. If an officer knows that body camera is running all the time, he's very unlikely to take an authoritarian stance with an individual in, swagger and push his advantage and use excessive force. So it's a way that management can also oversee what is being done on the street by the officers.
Body cameras are the best piece of evidence, both for the officer, the county attorney, and including the defense, because that information has to be released as information for the defense. But the way you should go about it is to look for resources. I know that the supervisors and maybe the county offers some obstacles, but you need to overcome those obstacles and not just stop there. There is a lot of funding from the Department of Justice. I was involved in the body camera for the CBP officers in Nogales. Over 500 officers now they have. Now, I know for a fact that there's funding available through the Department of Justice, possibly through Stone Garden. We don't know for sure, but at least you have an option to look for those. It's the best thing that you can have, both for the public, but also to defend the officers in case of an allegation. So we should look for any ways to get the body cameras available for the officers. Thank you.
Body-worn cameras, I think it's an excellent tool. Transparency. One, you start gaining the trust of the public when they see that you're wearing a public or the body-worn camera. And two, the likelihood that a citizen will complain against you which many times they come forward and complain against us when there's no factual, facts against us. The problem with body-worn cameras is not that you can, where to get the grants. The grants are out there. It's the maintaining it. It's the funding. That's what's the expensive portion of it. To have our Board of Supervisors absorb that funding and give us the budget money so we can continue to operate them. Because we don't want to get them through a grant. A year or two later, guess what? They're in a box because we ran out of funds because we have no money to continue to operate them. So we've got to be smart about it. I am all for it. It's transparency.
When I announced my campaign, one of my first messages that I put across was the importance for body cameras. I've been very, very harsh on Sheriff Hathaway for not having body cameras already in 2024. And for him to say that funding is an issue is an absolute lie. I was able to even pull off the statistics. Over the last 7 years, the Department of Justice has given out almost $350 million to small agencies to assist with body-worn cameras. Also, the fiscal year 24 body-worn camera program through the Bureau of Justice Assistance opens on July 15th and is providing up to $2 million for local law enforcement agencies to not only purchase the equipment, but also to maintain that equipment and the storage costs with it. The reasons we don't have body cameras has been complete complacency and malfeasance on behalf of the sheriff. Plain and simple. We should have had them a long time ago, and when I take office, I've already identified the grants. We're putting in for them and we're getting them ASAP because it is critical to transparency.
Thank you, Judge, for the question. I didn't realize the deputies didn't have body cameras. That's kind of interesting. Yes, I support the use of body cameras. I find I'm a problem solver. I don't understand how it shouldn't be that difficult to implement a body camera or store the pictures generated from the body camera. If I like it, I'll find a solution to that. It shouldn't be that difficult. There was a shooting that took place at the Circle K in Nogales. I saw 2 films by customers. I was disturbed by what I saw. I believe that body cameras could have provided a more correct understanding of what had transpired, and that's my response. Thank you.
Body cameras. When I was at the sheriff's office right before I left, the sheriff's office was starting to implement them, and there was several officers that had them. We were testing them. This question goes back to your other question about violent crimes. There was some mention that it's not so violent here, but we've had shootings. We've had several violent calls in the last 2 years. If these officers would have had cameras, these investigations could have probably been handled different. It is important, and there is resources out there to get them. Maintaining, the county has technicians. You can train your own staff to take care of them. So they are well overdue.
Sheriff, and you got some hard. We went first. You got some hard answers to that question. I think it's fair that we give you a minute if you wish to respond to that.
Well, I could just repeat that I did ask in my first year at the sheriff's office. There had been, the month before I took office, in December, there had been a shooting in Rio Rico. So it was an issue in the local media, and I did ask the county attorney's office for an opinion that I wanted to implement body cameras, and I was told, no, absolutely not. It would be legal issues, legal liability, and so it languished at that point, and I all along wanted to do it, and after there were more violent encounters in the community, I thought, yes, we absolutely need to do it, whatever the cost is, and that's why we put it in our budget this year, but hopefully it won't be an expense to the taxpayers. It'll be grant funded because we also submitted for a grant for that.
Following up on some of the comments that have been made by the other candidates, maybe yourself, officer-involved shootings. Again, there's been an uptick in that. Not all the sheriffs and the Nogales police officers also involved here in the county. And that's kind of a new development as far as I can see from the 20 years I've been here. Why do you think that's happening? Is it, are they dealing with more dangerous situations? Is it a training issue? Why is that happening, and how would you work to address it if you're elected?
Thank you, Your Honor. I strongly believe that we have a new generation of officers out there, people that are going up in the last 10 to 15 years. They see the world differently. But that aside, I think it all boils down to training. I don't know how often does the sheriff's office practices qualifications. My experience is that we do it every 3 months at CBP. Not only do we practice regular shooting, target shooting, combat shooting, situational scenarios in which we simulate the shootings that are happening in the country. So we simulate that digitally, and the officers go through that scenario. That actually provides a simulated and so realistic situation. That's what we need. But then again, that training shouldn't just be once a year, shouldn't be twice a year. You have to practice, you need to have tabletops, you need to practice with other agencies, because what happens when you have a shooting, you always request assistance from the Border Patrol, from DPS, from other agencies. And each one of them has a use of force policy. It's not all identical, but remember, the level of force has to match the level of the danger. You cannot go from A to Z. You have to address it depending on the circumstances of the situation. So it is a big problem nationwide, which brings up the defunding of the police. And I think it's lack of training, lack of consistency with the police departments that are throughout the nation. We haven't had that big of a problem here in Santa Cruz County, but we didn't have a 9/11 for how many years? And we got it, right? So we should always be prepared for the unexpected. And that would be it. Training, training, training.
The attrition that we're going through right now with the shootings simply goes back to more violent crimes being committed, mental issues, drug addiction, and like they said, you know, training. When you train once a year on, let's say, qualifications, and I could honestly say the sheriff's office only trains once a year for qualifications, it's for liability purposes only. When you do it once a year, for liability purposes. If you do it 2, 3, 4 times during the year, then it's for proficiency. And there would be nothing better than to get the officers trained in other subject matters and just continue training and just going and going and going and nonstop. There's never enough training going on. You may say, well, why are you training for this and then it never happens? If it does, we're ready. We're ready. I've had school principals call me and say, Mario, if you make it to the sheriff's office, can you please put up a active shooter training? I'm an active shooter instructor. It's going to happen. Now it's a standard for schools to be training in active shooter training.
Your question, Your Honor, I believe was kind of centered around what could be causing a lot of this uptick in officer-involved shootings. And a lot does have to come down to mental health. Our country as a whole is not servicing the mental health of its citizens sufficiently. On our end, we need to be prepared for that. And like most of the other candidates said, there's a focus on training. But my belief is we also need to laser focus on training regarding mental health and how to interact with somebody going through a mental health crisis, but how to de-escalate that. And as an Army veteran that deployed to Iraq when I was 20 years old, mental health means a lot to me. There's veterans out there that are having these issues with it, and I want to make sure that our deputies are prepared to deal with that.
events that I'm aware of, there was a gentleman in Nogales, MPD, pursued a suspect and he crashed, and the truck was so burnt that they had to ship the truck to the coroner's office with him still sitting in the truck. We have devices now that shoot a GPS device or a tracker, and you can allow the suspect to leave, and then you can just locate him. That could have been avoided if that type of device would have been used. There was another incident, a truck driver. He was shot, but he was driving a dangerous big vehicle. And the third instance is the incident that happened at the Circle K. I think that was tragic, but no charges against the officers were brought. Hope that answers the question,
Judge, your question, I believe, comes down to mental health. So that's the last shooting for the sheriff's office in the Rio Rico area. The subject that was shot and killed was suffering from mental illness. So it comes down to mental illness, and it comes down to training the officers, how to handle mental illness cases. Not only does it come down to that, the new drugs that are out here are worse than it was in the past, and it makes these people react very different. You also have to train on the new drugs that are out there to prevent these type of shootings.
Yeah, I have to echo what the other candidate said. You know, the active shooter training, we do that with the schools. We have a shooting simulator, a 360-degree shooting simulator in the office that we got about 2 years ago. And we do this de-escalation training. So you have what you call a force continuum. You teach the officer, slow things down, start with verbal commands. And then the force continuum can escalate to non-lethal mechanisms like a taser or a pepper ball gun to slow things down, to talk. The things where it was handled well, those don't make the newspapers. We had an incident about 6 months ago in Rio Rico that was an individual daring the officers to shoot him, being confrontational. And our head of our tactical and firearms instructor was actually on scene, slowed everything down, went through multiple verbal commands, had the officers that were with him, the same thing, go to the less than lethal options, you know, the taser, and it does come down to training mainly in de-escalation.
All right, Mr. Morales, the Kelly trial. George Kelly, defendant in a criminal case, was alleged to have committed second-degree homicide by shooting and killing a unarmed migrant on his property. Went to trial, and the jury came back with not able to reach a verdict. I assume each of you, all of you, paid attention to this. It was hard not to. And so it was a case that was investigated and by the sheriff's office, and then they participated, of course, assisting in the prosecution. Again, assuming each of you has paid some measure of attention to it, what takeaways did you have from that case as far as the sheriff's department is concerned? I'm not trying to ask that in a very open-ended way. I'm not saying that it should be positive or negative or indifferent. I'm just wondering, it's obviously the biggest case that's been investigated and prosecuted here in the county in quite some time. So I'm asking each of you what your takeaway is from that as far as the sheriff's department is concerned.
Basically, you're asking what we've done different?
I'm just asking as an open-ended question.
Okay,
Answer any way you want.
what I would have done as the sheriff, being such a complex investigation and shooting, not to belittle our detectives, because I'm sure within their capacity, they're very smart and they've had some training, but they still lack training. I would have brought in an outside agency possibly the Pima County Critical Incident Team from Tucson, maybe DPS, and I would have had my detectives shadow those detectives for, like, you know, on-job training, even though it was an active investigation. But by all means, I would have brought in a outside agency with a lot more experience, a lot more knowledge, what to look for, not to leave any stones unturned or holes uncovered. And I would have told my deputies, learn from these guys. These guys see shootings every day. If you watch TV in Tucson, within the area of 12th and Ajo, 13th and Drexel, Mission, and Ajo, it's just a small proximity. They had 3 shootings over a weekend, fatal. So these people are always on it. They know exactly what to do. That's what I would have done, and I would have been there on scene to make sure that the knowledge that I have would have been followed, protocol, policies, and make sure you know, things were not left uncovered or, you know, were not attended to. But that's what I would have done. I would have called an outside agency with such a complex shooting, because we're a small agency and we don't experience incidents like that as often as they do up north.
What everything he said, absolutely right. But I want to focus a little bit on the leadership aspect, and my takeaway from this was an absolute lack of leadership with it. From the get-go, the investigation was not handled properly. You know, when you have the elected sheriff go with a rookie detective into Mexico and conduct the investigation on the key witness and not have it audio recorded at a hotel bar, things weren't done the right way. As the case progressed, there was just a complete lack of leadership. And when Sheriff Hathaway did make comments, he was making colloquials on YouTube videos saying that the rancher was out to shoot a Mexican that day. So the professionalism in that investigation and the leadership in that investigation was the issue, absolutely, hands down.
I also believe Sheriff Hathaway dropped the ball on this. This gentleman is George Allen Kelly. He goes out, he finds a dead body, leaves a flashlight, comes back, calls the authorities. Authorities come out, and they confer between themselves, and then they handcuff him and charge him. And he spends tens of thousands of dollars defending himself. They dropped the ball on George Allen Kelly. These are the things that I think that should have happened. I don't know if I have enough time, Judge, but what was the gentleman that was dead wearing? If he was wearing a military uniform, then he was a drug runner. If not, or was he wearing a backpack? Where is the backpack? What killed that individual? What was the size of the round? What did the coroner say was the cause of death? Those are items that I bring into question as to how that case was handled, amongst others, but I'm out of time.
Thank you.
So it's been a tradition at the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office since I was there that whenever there's an important investigation, we call somebody else. We call DPS, we call Border Patrol, we call the Nogales Police Department. We're always calling somebody else to conduct our investigations. We have very well qualified officers in the Sheriff's Department. Not only are they qualified, but they have very good training. The people that I saw get the best training was in criminal investigations. These officers should be able to conduct these investigations, but it comes down to supervision and leadership. I believe that with good leadership and good supervision, those officers can conduct their own investigations. Yes, in the past, we've always called other agencies to come and do our investigations.
Yeah, well, we have called other agencies to do our investigations when we're involved. If one of our officers shoots somebody, we don't investigate ourselves. But we do, and in this case, the George Kelly case, we did call in other agencies that had expertise like geospatial photography, to map out the scene. Capabilities that we don't have, that we wish we had, but we don't have. People to look at the ballistics, and of course we use the Pima County coroner. I could talk about this for half an hour, but if I was going to say, kind of the main takeaway for me is, I'm going to do a little bit of a hit on the county attorney's office, that there was a parallel investigation with the county attorney's office using county attorneys investigators that were not following the leadership of the lead detective in the sheriff's office. Typically you have one lead detective for this can be federal or state investigation, local, one lead detective, and they run everything. But this parallel investigation by county attorney's office investigators kind of muddied the situation.
I believe our comments are based on what we read on the newspapers, and sometimes if you had the opportunity to go to court and listen to the witnesses, listen to the judge and the other people involved in there. But I do see that there was a very poor investigation, and I realize that we have good investigators. But if I was the county attorney, I would not accept a case for prosecution based on the evidence that was presented to the county attorney. There is no way. Now, he has the resources he has a team of investigators. If you see that they're lacking the evidence sufficient that it's not going to jeopardize, then of course accept the case. But if you see that they should have been more investigative, that the evidence was not sufficient, then you send the team to investigate. And if you need assistance from other agencies, like the lab, the FBI, and I believe that the FBI should have been involved because it involved an illegal alien coming from Mexico. And even though it was private property, they should have been a federal investigation along with the detectives.
Mr. Arnold, so school threats, school violence, school shootings. We've been fortunate here in Santa Cruz County that nothing serious has happened. We did have a number of school threats that were responded to that, fortunately for everyone, turned out to be substantiated and not real. But how do you, this is every parent's nightmare, that it can happen anywhere, as we're seeing. It could happen anywhere. How are we doing here in Santa Cruz County from a law enforcement perspective to protect the students and the families and the teachers and the people in school? And how do you feel about how we're doing, and what would you do if you were elected sheriff to make sure that those kids are protected?
Sure. First and foremost, as a father, I've got a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old that are in middle school right now, so this hits near and dear to me. Also, as the former DARE officer for the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office, I spent 5 years working hand in hand with the schools. I was trained as an active shooter emergency response trainer and helped the schools in developing a lot of their active shooter policies with it. But what worries me the most, comes back to what I've said multiple times, is on the staffing. With having one patrol unit in all of Rio Rico, one patrol unit in all of Patagonia, what happens? What if something happens? Well, we're going to be looking for mutual aid. We're going to be requesting for Border Patrol, DPS, and everybody and their mother to respond to these. Still to this day, the units on the ground have no way to communicate with each other. The sheriff has allowed the communication systems to go into shamble and still doesn't have IGAs set up so we can communicate with Border Patrol on a one-to-one basis. So you got to go through dispatch, who's got to pick up the phone, and then's got to call their dispatch, and then they've got to relay it on the radio. And seconds count. And when you look at cases that have happened, Uvalde, Texas specifically, it was United States Border Patrol that went in there and they handled that situation. That county sheriff's office was not trained, and they were not ready for that situation. And thank God the Border Patrol did go in there at that time. But as sheriff, it's going to be establishing the training and communications between our federal partners. And then it's going to also be, I'm sorry, I lost the train of thought. Yeah, the communications, the training, and then working on the staffing at the sheriff's office so that we're better prepared in case something like this happens.
Some of the solutions I've heard at the federal level is employing officers to guard and secure the doors. Once the children go in, nobody goes in. That's some of the solutions I've heard. Locally, what we could do is employ MPD and the sheriff's office to safeguard the schools on some type of basis that they would be available to use both budgets to accomplish the solution. I also heard the radio equipment was faulty. I don't understand why that hasn't been updated. Almost out of time?
Yeah, sorry, you were leaking down, so you are out of time.
I'm out of time?
Yes, sir.
That was my answer.
Your Honor, that's a real good question. I retired in 2018 and I started working at the Rio Rico High School. Before my retirement, I was in charge of SROs, school resource officers, and the DARE program. And since I left the sheriff's office, Mr. Hathaway just mentioned that there's active shooting training. I have not seen the training at the school. There's got to be a partnership, very important, with the school administrators to work on this. We live in a community where we believe it won't happen here. Well, times have changed. Everybody else, I guarantee you, thought that there would not be a shooting at their schools. We need to practice. We need to practice with other agencies. We need to train regarding school shootings. There's a school in Elgin, school here in Patagonia, which are neglected. I'm afraid of the times responses in Nogales. You mentioned the response times in the county out here. It all comes down to training. It comes down to
Yes, as far as the schools, we do active shooter training. Mr. Corrales might not have witnessed them all, but we also have systems that are set up with the school. There was a large grant, about $1 million, to create a system called Mutual Link that's based on a smartphone app where the schools have this app where they can communicate directly to law enforcement if something's going on. We also need to, there was a medication, mention of different medications out there. A lot of these psychotropic medications suppress the emotions, including reducing your empathy for other people. So people that are on mental health medications are less likely to feel remorse. They kind of average out their emotions, less likely to feel remorse to go on an attack or on a shooting spree. So we have to look for the red flags. We have to advise people in the school, fellow students, teachers, staff, the school resource officers to look for the red flags indicating that an individual is having a mental health issue.
I believe the question was focused on threats, school threats and possibly shootings. The last thing we want is an Uvalde, Texas incident here where there were so many deficiencies. Now, it takes a team effort. It'll take the parents need to know what to do. The school district needs to be engaged. The police departments, not just the sheriff's office, because it just depends where it takes place. They all need to be involved. Education, I think everybody mentioned training. That is crucial, but it's not just a one-time training. It's consistent throughout the year, doing exercises, simulating exercises as if it was the real thing. So it'll take a team effort between the parents, the school, the police departments, and exercise. You have to practice and everybody needs to be involved, and there needs to be an alert system to everyone, not keep it within the school. Thank you.
Excellent subject matter. Again, it comes back to training, and it's a standard now. Honestly, I don't know where the training's been, because I'm retired. I go out, I still know a lot of people. They see me, I come out to your community. I've seen your principal out here, and says, Chief, they still call me Chief. If you get elected, can you please do some active shooter training out here, please? I said, I will do it. And I'm the type of person that I don't promise, I get it done. And it's not just one training, because like I said, when you train once, you just train for liability purposes. It's continual training for proficiency. And active shooter training, there's no standard for local, county, state, or federal. It's all one standard. The rules of engagement and active shooter training is one. Eliminate the threat. That's it. We got federal officer, your state, county, or local. You go in there and stop the threat.
Mr. Barra, you get 2 minutes for this question because you're the first person to answer. Okay. It's often been said that a new leader's first 30 days are the most important, and setting what their priorities are. If you were elected, what would you seek to accomplish looking at in the first 30 days of your tenure?
That's the question, Joe? That's the question. If elected, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to go back 20, 30 years, take all the budgets, put them on Excel, and then analyze everything that has been done in the past so I can understand by analyzing and studying the past so I can understand the present and look forward and see how I'm going to project the future. If you know anything about numbers, that's the way you start and you can analyze and see what has happened. If they're lacking radio equipment, if they're lacking body cameras, something happened. That's my answer and my solution to your question.
If elected, my first 30 days is to go into the sheriff's office and meet with all the personnel. Meet with them, find out what's going on, see why we're failing, see our supervision, speak to our supervisors, speak to our leaders, see what's going on, meet with other agencies, see what we can do to better the department, meet with the board, meet with the county attorneys, meet with everybody that I need to meet to make that department better, to change it. There's good personnel, there's good people there. We gotta show some leadership. We gotta start there first.
Yeah, first thing I would do is continue being an ambassador for this area. Continue telling the world all the good things about our community. Unfortunately, in the 4 border counties in Arizona, 2 of those counties have sheriffs that are very much fear-mongering, crisis rhetoric. We have very positive communities here, good, positive people, safe communities, and I would continue to tell the world, because our merchants in Nogales and in Rio Rico, Patagonia, are being hurt by the fact of this negative imagery that we live in a war zone. So I would continue to be positive, be an ambassador for all the communities in our county, and tell the world about all the positive things. Because if you just rely on social media and the news, all you see is the razor wire on the fence to talk about a crisis in a war zone. I don't want this to become like East Berlin during the Soviet era, where we have a militarized border and militarized communities. It hurts business. It hurts all of us.
Thank you. On the first day that I report to the sheriff's office, My first action is to tell the second in command to continue running the department the way he or she has. In the meantime, I will be doing a lot of analysis. I'll be doing a lot of talking. You know, that was mentioned by some of the candidates. And why do you want to do? Because you still don't know the department. You don't know what's going on. And interview your staff, interview your deputies, interview the detention officers. You want to know what's going on. You know, you need to gather information. You want to go to the community, come here to Sonoya, Patagonia, Elgin, Tubac, and find out exactly what's going on. You know, what are the areas of improvement that we need to have. So it's hard to give you a good answer in 1 minute, but you need to gather information, you need to gather data, consult with the county attorney, consult with the staff, other agencies. There's a lot of work to be done, and that's what I would do. Thank you.
Mr. Agustini mentioned that it's time. And with that said, I'm not waiting for the first day in office. I'm already out there. I'm already having people within the sheriff's office, certified people, civilian personnel, coming to me, detention officers, and saying this is what we need. And I'm paying attention to that. So when I get to the first day, I won't have to set up a committee to do this, a committee to do that. I more or less know what to do and in what direction to guide the sheriff's office in. I'll meet with them. I'll meet with the command staff separately. After meeting with the command staff, I'll meet with all the employees, certified, civilians, detention officers, and I'm all ears. I'll listen to their concerns, their biggest fears, whatever needs for the sheriff's office need to go to the next level. I'm going to be all ears and be very observant and very, very attentive to them and make sure I'm there every day. Thank you.
As an independent, apolitical candidate, for me, being in that office and being direct, hands-on with the staff is extremely important. Sheriff Hathaway has done a good job of using his position to advance his political beliefs while having his second in command run the department. That's not going to be the way for me. Having one redundant position underneath of me is ridiculous, especially for a department that small. So first day, I've already mentioned the body cameras, but the second action is going to be elimination of the chief deputy position, and we can take that money to then hire additional deputies that will be boots on the ground servicing the community. Working on the staffing, like I mentioned, my Boots to Badges program, so we can start to recruit new people in, and then finally start to work on the morale within that department. Still to this day, there is not a personal performance management system in place. Anybody here that works in the private sector knows that you get evaluated on your job. That doesn't happen there. They need to be able to have guidance, direction, and be able to know where they can go in their career.
Thank you. I think the next question goes to Mr. Corrales. That's 2 minutes for your answer on this. And I should note that questions were submitted by the public ahead of time, and those were transmitted to me. And many of these questions, some very good questions, are coming from members of the public that were submitted ahead of time. I screened them, but they come from the public. And this is another one, which I thought was a very good one. And you've all talked about things you want to do and things you want to accomplish. The question was, how would you measure, what metrics or what system or methodology would you use if you're elected to measure the extent of success that you've had with your priorities or the extent of the failures?
Was that my success or my failures?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If you were elected over time, how would you, and talking about your priorities and having heard what your priorities are, how would you measure the extent of your success?
I would measure my success by the community's reaction if applying for re-election, if I was re-elected. The way to take your successes and your failures, I would start by one of my qualities, and I accept when I'm wrong. And I would surround myself with good people, people that would tell me the truth, and I would not take it personal. And it wouldn't be my opinion, it would be my staff's opinion, my workers' opinion, my civilians' opinion that I would be looking for. And that's who I would be asking if I'm failing or if I'm succeeding. If I'm failing, what can I do different to succeed? If I'm succeeding, what can I do to better the department, the community, and to better myself as the sheriff? I wouldn't judge myself. I would have my people in the community do it for me.
I have to largely echo what Rafita said. You can't just trust what your command staff tells you. If you just sit in the office all the time and wait for things to come up the chain of command, they're going to tell you, hey boss, I'm doing a great job. Everything's fine out there. So you have to gauge things based on community reaction. And each community is different. Like Patagonia and Tubac kind of have the arts community, different priorities. Rio Rico and Nogales have different priorities. The ranching areas, Sonoita, Canelo, Elgin, Loquillo have their own priorities. So you have to get input from the community. If I don't win this, I would advise anybody that wins to spend your first year solidly in the office, learning everything, the budgets, the grants, the personnel issues, but then don't hide in the office until you're up for re-election, and then the only time the community sees you is when you're up for re-election. That's what the other 15 counties in Arizona, the other sheriffs told me when I took office. Look, make sure you're out there and the public sees you and they can give you feedback. Don't just be in the office all the time except during election season.
Just like in the private sector, a lot of the decisions that are made may be data-driven, unless you have an urgency on a certain decision. But data-driven decisions are proven by the federal government and the state government and counties to be almost exact. The feedback will come from you as the citizens, public forums, town halls, and create a citizens academy for you to come and provide that information. Now, the other one is, of course, is the employees. The employees are not always going to give you the truth, but you still need to hear their feedback unless you do an anonymous survey. Then you will have data that you can use to measure your successes and as well as your failures. Now, the other one is the amount of successful investigations that you complete. The public complaints, complaints against the deputies, complaints about everyone against the department. Thank you.
I'll talk about a couple of my successes in law enforcement. Many people say, you think you're going to make a difference? I can honestly say in my 35 years, I've made a difference. Just recently, last week, I got a phone call from a victim of a homicide that occurred while I was a police officer in the city of Nogales, and said I would not talk to anybody but you. I attended to that person. I drove from exit 22 in Rio Rico, where I live, down to Mariposa Road and Grand Avenue, and I heard their concerns. I ran into another citizen back a while ago, found out I was running for sheriff, and he said, I'll vote for you because I am the person I am today and the father I am today and the father for this kid that's here right now because of you. You kept me straight while I was out in the streets.
How would you, the question is more directed towards how would you measure your success for the things you want to implement if you were elected sheriff? Looking back at some point in time, how would you assess the success that you've had or failure?
Well, the success that I've had is that I've been I'm going to say, an example for other police officers, for other.
And I'm saying, if you were elected and you tried to implement, for example, reduced officer shootings or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you might not. Probably wasn't the greatest question, but how would you, if you were in office, the things you were trying to implement, how would you measure whether or not you succeeded?
I will try to be the best leader there is and the best example for the department, for the ground boots, that's other men and women. Go out there and set an example. Even though it was said right now, you can't go out there and be on patrol. You can be out on patrol, but you're not going to be, investigating crime scenes or anything like that. arrive at a crime scene and ask the deputy what he needs, because he may be the only backup you have, or he has right there at the time. I would make myself available to that officer. By all means, I'm still a certified officer.
All right, thank you.
That's going to be my favorite question, because as a county that's currently suffering with a black eye because of corruption and lack of accountability, data-driven metrics is one of the greatest ways to have transparency with the community. As a business leader, I create objective key results, OKRs, and KPIs, key performance indicators. And as a matter of fact, I've got 12 pages of OKRs and KPIs that I prepared just for this debate. I never got to use them, but it's something that is the lifeblood and the backbone of running a business. So to be able to say that, you know what, in my first year of office, I want to accomplish this, and this is the metric that I'm going to determine the success with it. So for one of the issues that have been brought to me from the Nogales Police Department, for example, is booking in the jail is ridiculously slow. Sometimes 2-3 hours to book an inmate with it. So what I'll do is I'll create an objective, which will be reduce the booking time by 50%. And then we could take all of the subsequent bookings out, and then we can see, okay, hey, we've got it down now to under 30 minutes. And we could have that key result as a metric of success.
Measurement of success, right? In school, I analyzed the budgets for the state of Arizona, the state of California. That's state of California is huge, and the United States government. That was just in school, but I learned a tremendous amount. I've taken a course called Forensic Accounting. I understand a tremendous amount of metrics involving accounting and that nature. I was talking to you about analyzing the past and to project the future. To measure success, I'm going to call the Pima County Sheriff, analyze their budget, and spend some time with the Pima County in order that I can bring metrics to analyze my success in Santa Cruz County as your sheriff.
Thank you, Mr. Barber.
Okay.
Time's up. Thank you. All right, I think we're at Sheriff Hathaway, correct? All right. You know, in government, sheriff's department's no exception. We're always very reactive to what's been going on and what's happening, but looking to the future, things that really aren't even on the radar screen right now. And I know this is a hard question, but looking on the radars, the things just aren't even on our radar screen right now. What concerns you about things that might happen in the future that the voters really haven't been able to focus on because, you know, the news is always reactive in the past? What worries you that we might not know about that could be on the future radar screen? What concerns you?
Well, not to be too dramatic, but civil unrest. I mean, we have a world with wars sparking around the world, reactions to those wars. We've had massive money inflation, which is causing prices to go up. We have these discussions within the county with the county manager, county finance director. If inflation continues to spike, what do we do? How do we meet our budgets? So there's these kind of things, these sort of philosophical questions about what if there's massive civil unrest? What if we go into another world war? I think World War I, World War II, the definition of a world war is if you have 8 countries involved in a conflagration, and we do have that in multiple parts of the world now. So hopefully in our little sleepy part of the world, those kind of things don't spill over into our community, the civil unrest, but there's a tendency towards a militant attitude in this country, a tendency towards people wanting to grab an assault rifle and take the law into their own hands and confront other individuals, kind of this hostile rhetoric between political factions. So I hope that doesn't turn into anything, but that's, Your Honor, on the back of my mind. Could that escalate into something bigger? So kind of those two things, the inflation, how do we meet our budgets? How do we pay for services through county agencies? and how do we meet any potential violent outburst in the future, which we've seen some of that in the past year. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but that's kind of a generic concern I have.
I think every day when we wake up, we watch the news and we want to know what's going on in the world. And at the same time, you look at what's going on in this county. Will it happen here? But like Sheriff Hathaway says, some of those things that are happening in the world may happen here, so we need to be prepared. What are some of the things that are happening? Shootings. Sometimes the shooting is by a suspect, sometimes it's by the officer. Mental health. That is something that has been neglected in this country since Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States. It's been neglected. And so we all need to be proactive, not reactive. We need to watch for things that may happen. Not because it didn't happen here for the past 20 years doesn't mean that it's not going to come to us. So you need to predict the future in a way that you can prepare the citizens, you can prepare your department, you can prepare the communities for these things that may happen. And it goes back to training, it goes back to helping the officers become aware of what's going on in the world. Thank you.
My biggest fear as a police officer is the direction that our whole country is going into. We need to get our country back together again. We need to stop bickering among each other. We need to be united. There couldn't be a worse time in America, and I started back a long time ago as a police officer, to be a police officer. It is very difficult. People don't trust us the way they used to. And back then it was limited, and now it's even less limited. We need to get your trust back again. We need to stop bickering about it's Republican, it's Democrat. I can't hang around with you because you're Republican, you're Democrat. We need to unite. We need to have, like I mentioned in the beginning, a partnership. When we have a partnership, we could work together. And remember, a safer community is a cleaner community, without a doubt.
A lot of negativity, and I think you get enough from the media as far as the fear mongering and the pandering with it. So I'm going to kind of avoid that and kind of look on the micro level here. We've got some tremendous things coming in the future, from Patagonia and the potential of the growth that could happen here, as well as Nogales and the trade that happens in between Mexico and the United States. We're talking about having a completely brand new DeConcini port of entry start construction here in the near future. And that's going to bring some huge challenges for not only the community, but public safety, being able to manage the traffic and the construction that comes with it, the growth that comes with the expansion of the Hermosa project. So being able to track things on a micro level is, I think, even more important than being, constantly blasted by the media on the macro level.
There are two items that really give me concern. Nuclear war. ICBMs are utilized to conduct a nuclear war. They have multiple heads. There's a series of ICBMs that are launched. They do an EMP. Your grid goes down. All electricity goes down. And then they attack your cities. That's one of my worries of the future. The other is the United States and Europe, a revolution. We're getting pretty close to that. But it's important that we always protect your right to bear arms, our Second Amendment. Those are the two areas that bring worry to me.
Thank you.
Did I run out of time? I did?
Perfect. Perfect time. Perfect time.
Could I just say one more thing, John?
Each of you are going to have a chance to have a 1-minute closing statement.
Your Honor, I'm not sure if I understood your question. It has to do with the future. But I think, as I mentioned, we need to prepare. 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 We my main concern getting elected is to work on today, is not to work on the future. If I work on today and better the department, then we will work on the future by training, by doing what we have to do will prepare us for the future. It's working on today first that I have to worry about. And then I will worry about, it'll come together, working on today, getting more officers, getting more training, and then we'll worry and we'll start preparing at the same time for the future, what the future is going to bring.
All right, thank you. That concludes the questioning time that we had. By the rules, each one of you is entitled to make a 1-minute closing statement. So do we want to begin with Mr. Morales? All right, very well. So each of you is going to give a 1-minute closing statement, and then that'll conclude.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, for taking time off from your precious time. Thank you very much. If you have any more questions, we'll be here at the table. But I said at the beginning, 35 years of law enforcement experience here in the community, dedicated to the community, and committed to the community. It's about you. That's why I'm running for sheriff. 35 years of law enforcement experience here. I'm going to use this analogy. You can't go to Walmart and go into the cereal department, find it in a box of Cheerios or Wheaties or whatever. It takes a lot of dedication, loyalty. I was loyal to the Nogales Police Department. I was loyal to the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office. Those have been my main two agencies that I dedicated myself to. And I did it very proud. And I'm proud to be a servant. I will continue to be a servant if elected. And to let you know, among all the candidates right now, I still continue to be a certified officer. Okay? And I will fight for you. I will fight for you. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope today I was able to get a little bit of a message across on an apolitical stance for the position of sheriff. Sheriff Hathaway did mention that we have some border sheriffs that go to the extreme right. We have sheriffs that go to the extreme left, and I don't think it benefits anybody to try to present your political message in the position of sheriff. That's meant for our legislators. As a sheriff, you're a member of the executive branch of the government, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to take my experience and focus on the inside of the sheriff's office. We're understaffed. Morale is rock bottom. And to be able to take somebody that has military background in combat leadership, to be able to take my business expertise and to work in on grant writing and funding, and then be able to actually focus on the matters that are most important inside of the sheriff's office versus whatever media microphone it gets shoved in your face next. So that's, like I said, I'm hoping that that message is put across, and I'm hoping that you guys will vote for the person and not the party. Thank you.
Some of the items that I forgot to mention to you, if there's a nuclear war, 99% of the people on this earth will be gone. So 1% gets to inherit planet Earth. I've been to the toughest schools for the United States Army. I'm an expert in the field. I'll give you my word right now. I will keep you alive. That was one of the items that I wanted to mention because it's important. We're facing, right now, I worry when I look at the news what's happening between the United States and Russia. The other area is chemical. I worry that the train that goes through Nogales is going to derail and all those chemicals are going to flow into our water supply.
I'm sorry that your time's expired. Okay, thank you. Mr. Krause.
I want to start, first of all, by thanking the rest of the candidates for today. I also want to thank you, Judge. I want to thank everybody who put this together, everybody that's here. I also want to start by thanking my wife who has supported me.
my family, the community. My experience talks for itself. 24 years at the Sheriff's Office, as a supervisor, detention officer, as a investigator. That's what talks about me. I'm here asking you, I told you at the beginning, I'm not here trying to get a title. I'm here applying for the job of sheriff. And I want to thank everybody again. Thanks.
I'm going to use my limited time to talk about why I went to Mexico in the George Kelly case. You have a man shot through the back, bleeding to death. There's circumstantial evidence, shell casing, statements from a defendant. Let's pretend like this is your son. You want answers, and then the sheriff hears there's an eyewitness in Mexico. There's somebody that saw it happen. You would expect me, you would demand me to go to Mexico. If nobody else was willing to go, you would want me to go talk to that person and see what they saw and what they had to say. And I did do audio and video recording. I talked to the individual, pulled out my cell phone, and recorded what the individual said, what he observed. So that's the first thing. And back to the border stuff, Sheriff Nano said it best in a recent debate. He said, Border Patrol doesn't want to do my job. I don't want to do Border Patrol's job. The federal officers outnumber us 30 to 1. There's 30 times as many federal officers to every local officer. So I don't want to do their job. They don't want to do my job. Thank you very much.
I think you all have a very important decision to make on July the 30th, or if you're doing it by mail. But just quickly, remember that you want to choose the person that is going to be able to run that department. And quickly, I'm just going to remind you, I have 6 years with the military, with the U.S. Navy, a little bit of the county detention, and 4 years as a police officer for the Nogales Police Department. But mostly the executive level leadership that I had with the Customs and Border Protection, where I had the ability to administer a huge amount of people, armed people, budgets, and the ability to train and develop managers, future managers, to become the leaders that are going to take over that agency. Just remember that somebody that can run that department effectively and that can work with the County Board of Supervisors to make it a success.
Okay, that concludes our forum. I want to thank our candidates. I learned a lot. Your participation in our democratic process. It's more important now than ever. I'd also want to thank Judge Fink, who's done another fabulous job for us. And I want to thank all of you for coming, and please remember to vote in the primary on July 30th or before. It is, your vote is so important. Please plan to come back, I hope, on July 13th. You'll come and join us when we're going to repeat this exercise with the 3 candidates for District 3 Board of Supervisors. That plans to be, I think that's going to be quite an interesting debate. And at 4:30, the candidates are going to be here, each with a table. You can come talk to them, learn more about them, discuss what we've talked about today. At 4:30, we encourage all of you to attend the Patagonia Volunteer Fire and Rescue Department's Steak Fry in the park. It's their 100th anniversary this year, and we hope that you will come and help them celebrate. Thank you.